Welcome to episode 46 of the Total Hockey Training Podcast. I am your host, Sean Scahan. And before I introduce my next guest, I just want to remind the listeners that Total Hockey Training Online, we're in our postseason phase and it's going great, getting a lot of interaction from the clients on the online platform. And that's also what we're doing here at Scahan Sports. So the school community, it's growing. We have members coming in. It's been a lot of fun. We're getting a lot of interaction, posting a lot of content on there. So it's exclusive to what I post on social media, a lot of articles and former blog posts that I've put on. So check that out. The links for both the online training and the community are in the bio. All right, my next guest is my good friend, Roger Takahashi. Roger has been at the forefront of hockey strength and conditioning for 20 years now. He graduated from the University of Waterloo. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist by the NSCA. From 2003 to 2022, Roger was the director of strength and conditioning for the Vancouver Canucks. He is actively involved in the British Columbia Center of Excellence programs and was the inaugural president of the Strength and Conditioning Association of Professional Hockey. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk, welcome to the show, pal. It's great to see you, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for calling me and getting me on here to join the list of guests that are probably a little bit more seasoned than me. But
Oh,
yeah, it
no
is
way.
awesome being here.
No way. You were at the Canucks from '03 to 22, and I started with Anaheim in
Yeah.
2002. So I was a
Yeah.
year ahead of
We're
you, but you've
yeah.
got 19 years in, and I put in
Yeah.
19 years as well. So we have a lot in common here.
Yeah.
So
Same vintage. Yeah, for sure.
very. And so
Yeah.
talk about yourself. Where'd you grow up? And what
Yeah.
ultimately got you, what sports you played and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in Kamloops, and I'm sure anybody who's met me is probably tired of hearing me talk about Kamloops, but grew up in Kamloops in British Columbia here. Loved growing up there. Great city, of course, go Blazers. Kamloops Blazers WHL team, of course. Yeah, played hockey growing up, played some rugby, wrestled, took some martial arts as well, downhill skiing, all the kind of stuff that's around that area, hunting, fishing. From there, went off to University of Waterloo in science. And when I was there, the guys across the hall from me in my dorm, they were in kinesiology. And honestly, like every time I saw those guys, they're doing something fun. They're doing something that I really love to do, whether it was something like exercise physiology or biochemistry or something to do with nutrition and all of that kind of stuff. And honestly, once I finished science, I transferred right into kinesiology and took that. And I think I went 11 terms straight or something like that just to get that degree. Yeah, it was phenomenal. It's a great school, great program. Can't really say enough about going out there. I mean, Stu McGill was one of my profs for biomech in
Really?
third year. And yeah, they
Uh,
have a really good faculty that's there and
where is
people coming
Waterloo?
out of there.
Sorry, talk. Where is it?
It's near Toronto. It's probably maybe half an hour away from Toronto, 40-minute drive,
Okay.
depending upon the roads, of course. Yeah, yeah, it's in that area, Southern Ontario. So yeah, great place to go to school. Oh.
And so Dr. McGill was there as a biomechanics instructor?
Yeah, yeah, I
Wow.
know. It's hard to believe. It's interesting because, since he's become sort of famous, I guess you'd say, I just thought of him as a prof until, I started seeing all this information coming out about him maybe, 15 years ago or something. I'm like, oh, that's my old prof. Like, what's the big deal?
Right.
Yeah, but he's a fascinating guy. He's really very practical. He's got a lot of, he taught in a way that was understandable for a lot of people who didn't understand biomechanics at the time and made it to something you could use in the gym or training
Yeah.
people or through pathology or whatever. And that's what made it exciting. He made it, he made it in the way that you could interpret biomechanics. It was great.
I love that. We're still known for doing the quote big three, whether that's trunk curl up or
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I still
yeah,
think very beneficial
yeah,
exercises.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. And I mean, like, you look on social media now, and everybody has their own way. There's a lot of do it this way, never do it that way, and so on. And we're trying to really make it interesting for people, so you can get some traction and get clicks and things like this, and make a name for yourself. But everything comes back to some variation of that style of exercise, right? And as long as there's consistency with that, you're probably going to get some kind of success. So it's not sexy, and it may not get the clicks, but at the end of the day, he has had great success with that. So you can't argue with that.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And so what about after Waterloo, where'd you go?
After that, I came back here because I had a lot of student debt. So I had to start working and start personal training at a facility near where I moved to in Vancouver. And we saw a varied population from athletes to injuries, you name it. Did that for a little bit. And from there, did rehab work as a kinesiologist, working in a physio clinic. Um, and then came back and helped one of the guys who owned the personal training company at the time start up 5 physio clinics in the Lower Mainland. So I helped with that, oversaw that for probably, I want to say, 11 years, doing a very caseload. And then my wife was always telling me, hey, you should go into hockey. Like, you're always talking about going into hockey and you never do it. And at that time period, of course, I was always thinking, well, you have to wait for somebody to basically, it sounds more, but die, or nobody's going to give up their job.
Right.
So I thought of it as sort of an uphill battle, but she convinced me to just even apply to a local junior team. So I applied to a BC Hockey League team, the Langley Hornets, put together a proposal and brought it to them. And between the owner, Gary Berman, and the head coach, Rick Lance, they took me on and said, this is great. We need a guy like this. And that's how I started. More
Wow.
of a volunteer position than anything.
Sure.
From there, one of their coaches, their assistant coaches, Colin Kritma, his prof at the time, he was taking his master's, I believe, up at UBC. His prof was the exercise physiologist for the Canucks at the time. And they were looking for a strength coach because I think Pete left the Canucks in February or something like that of
Yeah.
03. Yeah, so they were looking for somebody, and he had asked, Dr. Rhodes had asked Chris if he wanted the job, and Kritma was like, no, I'm a coach. I don't want that type of a job, but we got a guy who would be great for it. So I put my name in, and it kind of went from there, kind of right place, right time. And
Love
yeah,
it.
it just sort of sunk in. Yeah, it was great.
Awesome. That is awesome. So, did you work under Twister at all? Did you have any affiliation with him?
No, not at the time. I mean, obviously, I talked to him a lot prior to that. And, you know, you talk about these guys that sort of came before us and kind of really paved the way and broke a lot of doors down. They obviously had it a lot harder than us,
Yeah.
guys like Lauren and, Pete and stuff, because back then, hockey players, it's not like today where every kid is working out, every
Right.
kid's watching their nutrition, taking supplements, and so on and
Yeah.
so forth. Back then, it was guys were having a smoke and they wouldn't bother working out until only if they had to, right?
Right.
I mean, if I had $1 for every time I heard the comment, nobody scored a goal from the bike or something
Yeah.
like that,
Right. Right. Yeah.
like that kind
Wayne
of an
Gretzky
attitude.
couldn't do a pull up. Yeah. Wayne
Yeah,
Gretzky,
exactly.
by
Yeah, yeah, and those are the things that that they had to live with day in day out because no one saw the value of working out, right?
Right.
They thought it would hurt their game versus help their game, right? So no, I didn't train underneath him, but you know, obviously I followed his career fairly closely, and but you know, that's what I want to do. I want to do what he does, you know. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I think the listeners, this is early 2000s and it was a different time, like Roger said, than it is now. And you had to get guys to buy into what you were trying to accomplish. And I
yeah,
mentioned it several times before. I was lucky to have a captain in Paul Correa, who you know, he's from up there.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like what was your leadership there like? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky in that Pete had already, you know, put sort of laid the groundwork down. So
Sure.
working out and you know, having the gym there, doing bike rides and hitting weights and stuff, that was part of their culture already. So I didn't have as tough a time coming in there because they already knew what a strength and conditioning coach was. I didn't
Mhm.
have to say, this is what I do. You know, not to say that I didn't have a few battles, which I think all of us did at that time
Mhm.
period. But definitely it was easier for me than I think probably a lot of other guys.
Nice. Well, that's good. So talk about, if you could, your general philosophy training the Canucks. You know, like were you I guess training after a game coach? Were you kind of like a morning game guy? If you can get into that?
I think like everybody, you know, your philosophy changes with your experience and with your age and these kinds of items. Um, we, when I first came in, I think I tried to sort of follow the structure that was already there to the best of my ability. And then from there, kind of morph it into something that you know, that was more my style. But in all honesty, my style is probably no different than anyone else's,
Mhm.
and I can't really brand it as that. As I got older and had more experience, I found that it was the individuality counted and common sense counted and consistency counted. That's what we needed. A lot of strength coaches, I think, we get caught up in numbers and workouts and performance in the gym, but at the end of the day, the performance that counts is on the ice,
Mhm.
and we have to it's a balancing act between making sure we have durability, making sure we have increases in performance, making sure that there's structure there, there's teamwork, there's camaraderie, there's all these different items that have to come into play. And there's 22 players in there that are all different. They play different minutes, different positions, different styles, different backgrounds, different genetics, and so on, and different lifestyle situations. Maybe one had a new baby and one doesn't, and this kind of thing. So we have to take that all into account, and that's the juggling act. And as I got older in my career, that's more what I focused on, with the individuality. And so there needed to be some structure in that. Okay, we're going to work out as a team because we need some of that, but at the same time, there's a lot of, okay, you're going to do this. Um, you're going to have the option of working out tomorrow morning because you just played 27 minutes.
Yep.
What are we going to get out of a player if they played 27 minutes tonight?
Right.
Probably not a lot, right? Would it be
Right.
more beneficial to get this player into recovery and get them, you know, ready for the next day? And if we need a workout because we're traveling or something, maybe we'll get it in tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah.
That's more important, is individualizing the program, but having some kind of team structure.
I love that. Yeah, I did the same thing with the high minute guys. I'd let them, you know, come in the next morning if they got like
Yeah,
27 minutes or something, if they were a defenseman or a
yeah,
forward, whatever. And then, but the guys who, you know, played under 10 minutes, they had to put the work in. And
yeah,
it just seemed to flow that better that way for me. I don't know. So talk about
yeah,
who'd you have for coaches in Vancouver? I know Torts was there. I know
yeah,
AV was there. Who
yeah,
else did you have?
yeah. Oh, I started with Mark Crawford
Oh, sure.
for a few years in the very beginning, and then of course, as you know, I started in '03, and then '04 we had the lockout, so
Yes.
it was like, oh, fantastic job, this is great, and then we got locked out the next year.
Right.
Spent most of my time in Winnipeg that year, We had Manitoba Moose was the American
Oh,
Hockey League
Wayne.
team we had. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
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 had
yeah.
him. Yeah. So we went that way. I was probably there quite a bit, 12 times. I want to say that season. And back then we didn't have a strength coach there, so I was kind of doing both. And it's interesting to talk about the evolution, I think, of the strength coach from, you look at that 0203 kind of era till
Mhm.
now. And, when we started, we used to joke bikes and barbells. That was our job,
Yeah.
right? There were no
Protein
supplements.
shakes,
There are no shakes. Like there are no
metrics.
post game meals, no omelet station.
Yeah.
There's none of this stuff.
Chefs.
And yeah, there's nothing. And we
Nothing.
were honestly on our own to create all this. You were not only the dietitian, you're the strength coach, you're also, running around trying to do research and get the sports science side and the monitoring and as all of that sort of came on board. And you go into an NHL room now and you see like just the pure amount of staff that's there and the equipment and um, I think it's great. It this is should be. We're finally catching up to sport. But back in 02, 03, 04, there was really not a lot there. I can remember. I think we were one of the first teams, I guess, to start bringing in post game in-house meals and breakfast and
Right.
supplements and things like that. That was a huge thing back then. And, we said we want to do everything for the players possible so that their focus is coming in and playing hockey,
Yeah.
And so
Oh, that's
when they
awesome.
get up in the morning and guys were notorious for getting up, dropping their kids off, wheeling through Starbucks, getting a latte and coming to practice
That was it.
because
Yeah.
that's what they did, right? And
Mhm.
so we thought, well, this is where we have to provide some kind of breakfast now for them, and it just kind of went from there. And that was, you have a little bit of ownership on what they're eating, when they're eating, and
Mhm.
so on, and hopefully that can help educate them. You could use that as a step to educate them to help themselves as well when they're not at the rink. So
No, it's good. You mentioned Manitoba. So I remember going to Cincinnati. I think I'd go like 5 days every month because, yeah, at the time they didn't have a strength
mm,
coach down there. And you were responsible for the American League program and the NHL program.
yeah,
And you'd
yeah,
go, and the guys all knew, okay, Skahan's coming next week. Let's be on our toes. And like,
yeah,
like they'd be
yeah,
awesome. They'd be lined up for warm up. They
yeah,
do the workouts, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
when you
yeah,
leave, it's like, okay, boys, he's out of here. Let's
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
we were able
yeah.
to provide structure in that environment too. So I think that's pretty neat. I remember that lockout. That was a long year. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, and the number of times your phone would be ringing and they'd be saying, "Oh, it's back on. Like, get ready.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
coming." Yeah, yeah. You get your gear ready and you be ready to fly back over. And the next morning, no, it's off. No,
Yeah, I remember that. I remember
yeah,
looking at like the
yeah,
TSN
yeah,
website and seeing like headshots of like a PA person and like the league person.
yeah,
Like, and I remember Babs was our coach back then. He's like, okay, we're
yeah,
going. And
yeah, yeah. Get ready. Yeah,
all the way up until like February, March, like we're gonna be playing. I'm
yes,
like,
yes,
oh no.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Abbreviated season. This is what it's gonna look like.
and then we had
Yeah,
when we had then
yeah.
we had another one in what, 11 or something or 12,
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yes, you're
48
correct.
game
Yeah,
season.
yeah, yeah. It was a short season. I remember that as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
interesting. So talk about your role on being part of the training staff. Like you were probably like me. You saw yourself as part of the training staff and not necessarily you were a strength and conditioning coach when the boys were in your weight room, like they knew who was in charge. But when it came to being part of the staff, you were a training staff member, correct?
yeah. And so, with my background in the BC Hockey League, there was only myself and Paul Ing, and Paul was kind of their medical slash equipment guy, and I was the
Mhm.
strength and conditioning guy. And so, I went on every road trip, etc. And we did everything from
Yeah.
taking the jerseys to the laundromat and with a bag full of quarters to mopping the floor and everything. And so when I got out of there, I think part of what got me the job actually is that when I went to the interview, they were asking me questions like that about hockey culture. How do you act? What do you say? Where do you stand? What do you do if this happens? And I knew all those answers because I just completed an entire season of that. So I
Sure.
could answer the questions quite well. And like you said, if you're part of in a team atmosphere, you are part of a team. So I think with all of us, we all want to help each other, want
Yeah.
to go to the same place. So we all would just drop everything to, okay, this needs to be done. Well, let's just get it
Right.
done. Okay, can we do this? Yes. You need an extra hand. Yeah, let's do it. And so the philosophy extends outside of the weight room. You know, our work, and
Hmm.
then we would help equipment or we would help medical, anything that we could do that'll help the machine run faster or run more efficiently is our role too. So, and I think you have to remember that there are only so many staff members back then.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So it wasn't, yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's not, I can remember, I think the equipment only traveled with two at that time. Medical only traveled with two, and there was myself. There was five of us running everything. So
Yeah. We had
yeah,
we had four of us in Anaheim. We had myself, the head athletic trainer, and two equipment managers. And
yeah,
you know what's funny too? I remember like everyone could get on one bus. Like
yes,
you had your
yes,
radio guys, you had your coaching staff, management, and you had your radio and television people all in one
yeah,
bus.
yes,
Nowadays, it's
yeah,
two
yes,
full luxury buses per team.
yes,
And
yeah,
the training staff would go on the truck.
yes,
Um, yeah, crazy. It was, and it's like, yeah, our head athletic trainer was by himself, and I would be making ice bags. I
yes,
remember staying back in actually Vancouver. I had to go to the hospital with Adam Oates one time because he blocked a
yeah,
shot in his hand like this. And I got the name Random Task. There was a character from I forget the movie with Michael Myers. Anyways, there was a character named Random Task,
yeah,
and I got that name from Kevin Sawyer actually, who
yeah,
does TV. Because you just did random shit, like it's like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah,
can you get me a thick 58 waxed? Like you better know what that is.
yeah,
Or like, can you get me the
yeah.
saw? Or can you get me this? Or can you get me a Powerade was a drink back then. Like, can you get me a
Yeah, that's right.
Powerade?
That was the
So
sponsor, right? Yeah, it
yeah,
was. Yeah,
yeah, that's good
yeah,
stuff to kind of reminisce about that. And so
yeah, yeah,
I want to talk about like your involvement with SCAP, this society,
yeah. Strength and conditioning.
Strength
Yeah,
and Conditioning Association Professional Hockey,
yeah.
SCAP.
Professional hockey. Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of, I talked to Reg Grant about it when he was on, and like talk about, I remember meeting at the in the ballroom in Toronto, and
Mm.
a coach had his dog on his lap, and there was probably like five of us, and that was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
infancy of this,
yeah.
and that's going to make you feel pretty good of how far that's come.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I came on board, we were really just islands on each team. Nobody talked to each other. The climate was very much of a situation where my loyalty to my team.
Hmm.
I have my own way of training people. I don't want any other people to know what I do because that may end up, coming back and biting me in the because they're going to use it. They're going to my GM see me sharing secrets, and I'm going to get fired. And so there was a lot of everyone sort of staying by themselves. And I can even remember guys coming into my rank, strength coaches, and you'd be walking down the hallway and say hi, and they just blow right by you, wouldn't even make eye contact with you.
Yeah,
And I thought
there were some
that's
dickheads back then.
definitely
I got to say that.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, like you look at the equipment guys, you look at the medical guys, like the athletic therapists, everyone has their own association. They're all together and they all help each other out. Oh, uh, I need a such and such blade for my skate. We're out, man. Oh, hey, no problem. I'll get you one. And they go back and forth and give stuff. And we were so, I don't know what the word is, but we're just so proud. We just would never ask that. And until, and it seems so absolutely ludicrous that we would get nowhere because, there is strength in numbers and we would just never do that.
Hmm.
So we started out more being kind of more of a social type of a situation where we could get everyone together and just at least start by getting everyone on board. And I remember I used to do this little newsletter out like every month or whatever it was, and we'd have like stupid little things like 2 minutes in the box with Mike Potenza, and we'd ask these questions like, Dunkin' Donuts or Tim Hortons, and
Yeah.
crazy stuff, just stupid stuff, right? But it was a way of kind of getting everyone to loosen up a little bit and know each other in the league.
Yeah.
And from that, it morphed into something a little bit more serious. And I know, with Reg and Mike and David Good and yourself and, Mike Bond and all these guys that have come on board and made this happen in more of a, financial situation and more of a formal association. You guys did all the legwork more than I did. I might have banded the troops together at the time, but and we laughed because every year would come up, okay, who wants to be president? No one would raise their hand. Oh, Doc's back in there again. It's just like, okay, fine. For like a decade.
I think
But
Goody's been the secretary for a while, right?
yeah, for equally as long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
So
funny. And yeah, but like it grew from like five of us hanging out, and then
yes, yeah,
next thing you know, we brought in sponsors and speakers,
yes.
and
Speakers, yeah.
now it's part of P Hats, correct? Yeah,
Yes, correct. Yeah, yeah. And
really.
we started out by having, our own trade show a couple of years there with, Ultra Slide and those guys and
Hammer strength.
Hammer Strength, right? And Life Fitness. And it morphed from there into joining P hats and FEM. So but that's where we wanted to get to, really. We wanted a little bit more membership. We wanted benefits for the members and, keep progressing that. And it's tough because our being a strength coach in the NHL, as you know, has a certain shelf life. I never expected to be there as long as I did. And I'm sure, you didn't. When you look at the lifespan of those people before you, you're looking at maybe 5 years, six if if things roll really well.
Right.
And so if you get in and you want to create a society or an organization, but you're only there for 5 years, you're just doing your job. You don't have time to do anything else. And so it was really tough, I think, for us to progress. And I really would have liked it to have some focus on those in a section for coaches, not just in the NHL, but in all sports where it's, okay, what do you do after you're a strength coach?
Yeah.
Where do you go from here? And we're
100%.
so busy just focused on our sport. And you know how it is. You're the same way. You and I are very, very, very similar in when we started in the dogma and what our mindset was. And we would do team. And I don't want to say it. It sounds really bad, but it was always team first, family second.
Yeah,
And
it was unfortunate. Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but that is the truth of the matter. And we missed out on a lot of things, and we put all our eggs in the basket of being with a team. So the tools for us when we get out in any sport, to be honest, like whether you're American Hockey League or anything, that there needs to be some kind of tools. Okay, now you're out, just like there are for players that they've worked all their lives to be an NHL player, then their career is done in 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is. They get out and they're like, well, all I know how to do is play hockey. What do I do
Yeah.
now? Right.
Right.
It's similar to one of our sons just is in the military now, and he's going into he is in the Navy, but he's taking, besides the combat role, he's also taking welding. And one of his friends is a tank operator who joined almost a year before him. And he said that's a really good idea because he said that when I get out, I have no other transferable civilian skills. Nobody's driving a tank around. He
Right.
said
Right.
so,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and he said
Right.
I wish I had taken another skill.
No, that's a great
So
point. Yeah.
that's the yeah,
It's I want to talk about that. So, yeah, you're not prepared. You're in the grind. Like I can remember like when the Ducks were we had some good teams and like we'd make deep runs into the
yeah,
springtime, and back then like
yeah,
yeah, both my boys were born in May. I'd miss their birthdays. I'd miss this or that.
yeah,
And I'd miss friends from back home. I miss their weddings. I'd miss funerals because we had a game. I remember when my
yeah,
son was born, he was born after we Randy back then, we didn't get many
yeah,
days off. And we
yeah.
beat
I
someone
know,
in the
right? Yeah,
we
yeah,
we we
yeah,
we, we
yeah,
beat someone in the playoffs and like he gave everyone a day off. And my son was born on that day of the day off. Like it
yeah,
but yeah, so I
yeah,
was back to work, the next day because we were in the playoffs.
yeah,
We just had swept Colorado and we were going to play Edmonton actually. That's when it was.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you're an important part of the team at that time. And like, but
yeah,
like you look back and you're like, man, I miss so many things. And it's like,
yeah,
but you're having
yeah,
success with the team,
yeah,
but your real team was back home missing you. And so like, yeah, I
yeah,
get that. So I want to talk about what your life is like after the NHL. I mean, for me, it was hard because it's all you knew. It was that kind of like grind mentality, watching games and working with players and trying to get them to get back in the lineup if they were injured and you're kind of rolling, wins, losses, playoffs, success or not. Like it was tough to decompress from that. So talk about your personal experience from that and what you're doing now.
yeah. So once I finished, of course, the question is like, okay, well, what am I gonna do?
Hmm.
And people would say, do what you know. Well, what I know is training.
Yeah.
That's what I know, and I'm fully vested into that, and that's been my focus all my life, even with myself. I've been a small guy, and apparently I'm shrinking now too, so I'm even smaller than when you saw me last. But when I was working out, I would always think, well, pound for pound, I can be the strongest. So that was my focus. It was always performance. It was never about gaining size because would never be able to gain size, but I could be really strong, and I think that way I was surprising a lot of people
Hmm.
with my lifts. So I've always been vested into that. So once I finished, we had put a gym into our house just prior to COVID with a shower and so on. So I started operating out of there, training people from a variety of walks of life. I mean, from the age of 10 to 89. And it's really satisfying in when you can help somebody who's in their 80s. Okay, this is how you get up off the floor. This is how you
Right.
can get up a set of stairs. This is how you can do fall prevention. These kinds of items. So it's been really rewarding in that aspect. And of course, I do a lot of hockey too because that's what I'm known for. And it is interesting when you come out, and I'm sure you face the same thing in that there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to hockey training with respect to younger players and players entering the draft and what they think the NHL is going to be like. And they've been told by a lot of people, this is the way you need to train, or this is what these people are going to be focused on, or this is what the style of workouts are going to be. And so coming out, I was actually surprised. So there's a lot of education I had to do with a lot of players and in training them and getting them ready for whatever it was, combine or just making the first step into the pro leagues. But so I was doing a lot of that, and then I actually do quite a bit of work with first responders now. So I
Awesome.
work for a company, Fire Academy called Fire Medics in Surrey, British Columbia, and so they see a new class every 21, 22 days, and it's
Wow.
been awesome. It's been unbelievable. I can't say
Yeah.
enough about uh, the firefighting community. They are unreal. That
Right.
I can see how NHL players would gravitate towards that because it is a team. The atmosphere is very similar. Everyone's going for the same goal. It is very physical, performance based. and I absolutely love it. My wife's always like, "You come home from that place, and you're always so happy." And yeah, and
Awesome.
I didn't know a lot of that industry, and they've had me suit up before and go into their building and
Wow.
stuff like this. And yeah, it's been amazing, and just to see. So Surrey Fire runs 24-hour shifts. They run a 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 5 off is what they run. And depending upon the hall, you could be in a number of, medical calls, one right after the other, or structure fires within that 24-hour period. And it's absolutely unbelievable to see what these people do. It
Yeah,
is, and they have to be in such good condition. Yeah, hats off, absolute hats off. Like, it's amazing. So I really like that. And I'm working with some uh, police as well, law enforcement as well too,
nice.
and getting into military now a little bit, of course, with my son too. So
Good.
yeah, that side of things, I'm really interested in the first responder side of things now for performance. So I'm doing a lot of that as well too. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so, like, I can remember working in the NHL and thinking, like, oh man, like I'm gonna keep doing this forever. And then as you get older, you're like, what am I gonna do? Like it is a young person's game. It's,
Mhm.
what am I gonna do? And so you have to have that plan in place and situations that you're gonna have to cross and figure out. And it's tough, but when you get through it, it's awesome. It's great. The other side
Yeah,
of
and
it.
I think like it's tough for especially sort of the old school strength coaches where our job was keep our heads low, do your job, don't get into the limelight, don't accept any kind of accolades, just stay out of it. You're a cog in the wheel. And so when you do get out, you're not at the forefront. No, you're not on the edge of the tip of somebody's tongue, right?
Yeah,
And that's, because you spent so much time just focused on the team, and that's really what you want. You really want to be focused on the team. That's your job. You're not
sure. Yeah,
there to bring attention to yourself. At the same token, I think it's a matter of kind of morphing your job. Like you said, it's a young person's job with respect to being, in the gym itself, or what I used to refer to as kind of like the dojo, in the
yeah,
dojo itself, and teaching somebody how to do a front squat or something. And there's a difference between that and being somebody who's overseeing the performance side of things, saying,
sure.
okay, this is where we're headed, the strategic planning and so on. And I think as we get older, our value really is in the experience, in seeing things that are going to happen and making changes so they either do happen or don't happen.
Right.
And as a young strength coach, we had to learn those things on our own and just let the mistakes happen. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, but our value now is inexperience, where people can ask us, okay, we have these players. What do you think? Do you see issues with them, or how can we approach this? And we'll say, okay, well, this is the way. These are some options.
Hmm.
That's our value now.
Love it. That's awesome. And so for the listeners, actually, I want to ask you another question. I remember you mentioned you had like a lot of dogs, right? Do you still have a lot of dogs?
We have a lot of dogs. Yes, we
How
do.
many are we
Yeah,
talking?
yeah. Oh, I can't really say legally. No. Yeah, we have lots. I don't want to get in trouble. We do have a lot of dogs, and my wife, she is a dog trainer.
Okay,
Um, so yeah, and we've done a lot of fostering and adoption and things like that. And there have been a lot that have obviously stayed with us, and they're all getting on. We have a couple of young dogs, but the majority of them are getting to be seniors now. Yeah,
yeah.
it's fun though. It's
So
awesome.
more than
Yeah,
five?
yeah, maybe.
That is awesome. Hey, Talk, where
Yeah.
can my listeners find out more about you and learn about you, and if anyone's in Vancouver or British
Yeah.
Columbia that needs training or something, like how
Yeah.
what's
And I haven't changed. I'm still not very good on social media or anything like that, as you well know. But I do have a website, TAC Athletics, TAK Athletics.
Okay.
dot com. So you can find me on there. I'm on Instagram as well, though I don't seem to go on there too often, as you have found out. But yeah, that's the best way to take a look at me and go from there. There is another TAC Athletics in Philadelphia or somewhere, because I had a guy
Okay.
actually call from New York and said, "Hey,
Oh,
you wanted
really?
training?" And yeah, and then by the time we actually figured it out, we figured out this place is actually not in Vancouver.
He was 3 hours
I'm
ahead of
not that
you.
person. Yeah,
That's
they're at
funny.
tacathletics.org, I believe. So yeah, it was
That's
funny.
funny. That's great.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
hey, man, I just want to say thanks for coming on. This has been great. It's been great to see you. I miss seeing you at the combine and visiting
yeah,
with
yeah,
you, playing the Canucks and borrowing
yeah,
dumbbells, whatever it was. But I
yeah.
appreciate it, man.
It was the foot speed ladder.
For the latter, yeah, yeah, yeah. Nelson used to come at my knocking on my door. Can I
Yeah,
borrow 260-pound dumbbells, please?
yeah.
And then
Yeah, that and then the chin up bar was really high. We had that
yes,
set
they
really
were
high.
very
Yeah,
high chin-up bar. At
yeah,
least at least you had it up. I
yeah,
remember there was a
yeah,
cardboard box in the change room at an arena. I'm like,
yeah,
and we had the player on the PA. We had the player with us who was his job was to make sure the weight room was set up. And
yeah.
he's like, who put this bar here? This bar needs to be installed on that wall right now for us. Anyways, I'm not going to say who that was or the team
Oh,
was.
I know who that was.
Yeah,
I already
yeah.
know who that is now that you say that. Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
those are the fights we had to, those are the little
yeah,
skirmishes, I guess. But anyways, it's been awesome
yeah,
having you on. And thanks again, buddy.
yeah. Great to see you. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks, Talk.
yeah. Sounds good.
See
Okay.
ya.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.